हेलो माय डियर फ्रेंड्स, कैसे हैं आप लोग। उम्मीद करती हूँ आप सब अच्छे होंगे। चैप्टर नंबर 29, लीजल्स लेक्चर फ्रॉम द बुक थीफ रिटन बाय मार्कस ज्यूजैक. Exactly. What kind of people Hans and Rosa Huberman were not was not the easiest problem to solve. Kind people, ridiculously ignorant people, people of questionable sanity. What was easier to define was their predicament. The situation of Hans and Rosa. Hans Huberman very sticky indeed, in fact, frightfully sticky. When a Jew shows up at your place of residence in the early hours of the morning, in the very birthplace of Nazism, you were likely to experience extreme levels of discomfort, anxiety, disbelief, paranoia. Each place is sparse and each leads to a sneaking suspicion that a less than heavenly consequence awaits. The fear is shiny, ruthless in the eyes. The surprising point to make is that despite the iridescent fear glowing as it did in the dark, they somehow resisted the urge for hysteria. Mama ordered Liesel away. Bet Somensch, the voice calm but firm, highly unusual. Papa came in a few minutes later and lifted the covers on the vacant bed. Alice got Liesel. Is everything good? Yes, Papa. As you can see, we have a visitor. She could only just make out the shape of Hans Huberman's tallness in the dark. He will sleep here tonight. Yes, Papa. A few minutes later, Max Vanderberg was in the room, noiseless and opaque. The man did not breathe, he did not move, yet somehow he traveled from the doorway to the bed and was under the covers. Everything good. It was Papa again, talking this time to Max. The reply floated from his mouth, then molded itself like a stain to the ceiling. Such was his feeling of shame. Yes, thank you, he said it again. When Papa made his way over to his customary position in the chair next to Liesel's bed. Thank you. Another hour passed before Liesel fell asleep. She left hard. She slept hard and long. A hand woke her just after 8:30 the next morning. The voice at the end of it informed her that she would not be attending school that day. Apparently, she was sick. When she awoke completely, she watched a stranger in the bed opposite. The blanket showed only a nest of lopsided hair at the top, and there was not a sound, as if he did somehow train himself even to sleep more quietly. With great care she walked the length of him, following Papa to the hall. For the first time even the kitchen and Mama were dormant. It was a kind of bemused inaugural silence. To Liesel's relief, it lasted only a few minutes. There was food and the sound of eating. Mama announced the day's priority. She sat at the table and said, "Now listen, Liesel, Papa's going to tell you something today." This was serious. She didn't even say showmanship. It was a personal feat of abstinence. He will talk to you and you have to listen. Is that clear? The girl was still swallowing. Is that clear, Somench? That was better. The girl nodded. When she re entered the bedroom to fetch her clothes, the body in the opposite bed had turned and curled up. It was no longer a straight log but a kind of Z shape reaching diagonally from corner to corner, zigzagging the bed. She could see his face now in the tired light. His mouth was open and his skin was the color of eggshells. Whiskers coated his jaw and chin, and his ears were hard and flat. He had a smell but misshapen nose. Liesel, she turned, move it. She moved to the washroom. Once changed and in the hallway, she realized She would not be traveling far. Papa was standing in front of the door to the basement. He smiled very faintly, lit the lamp, and led her down. Amongst the mounds of dust sheets and the smell of paint, Papa told her to make herself comfortable. Ignited on the walls were the painted words learned in the past. I need to tell you some things. Liesel sat on top of a meter tall heap of dust sheets, Papa on a 15-liter paint tin. For a few minutes he searched for the words. When they came, he stood to deliver them. He rubbed his eyes. Liesel, he said quietly, I was never sure if any of this would happen, so I never told you about me, about this man upstairs. He walked from one end of the basement to the other, the lamplight magnifying his shadow. It turned him into a giant on the wall, walking back and forth. When he stopped pacing, his shadow loomed behind him. Someone was always watching. You know my guardian, he said, and there the story began. He explained the First World War and Erich Vanderberg, and then the visit of the fallen soldier's wife. The boy who came into the room that day is the man upstairs. Were were teased. Understand? The book thief sat and listened to Hans Huberman's story. It lasted a good hour until the moment of truth, which involved a very obvious and necessary lecture. Liesel, you must listen. Papa made her stand up and held her hand. They faced the wall, dark shapes and the practice of words. Firmly he held her fingers. Remember the Fuhrer's birthday when we walked home from the fire that night. Remember what you promised me. The girl concurred to the wall. She said that I would keep a secret. That's right. Between the hand holding shadows, the painted words were scattered about, perched on their shoulders, resting on their heads, and hanging from their arms. Liesel, if you tell anyone about the man up there, we will all be in big trouble. He walked the fine line of scaring her into oblivion and soothing her enough to keep her calm. He fed her the sentences and watched with his metallic eyes desperation and placidity. At the very least, Mama and I will be taken away. Hans was clearly worried that he was on the verge of frightening her too much, but he calculated the risks, preferring to err on the side of too much fear rather than not enough. The girl's compliance had to be on an absolute immutable factor. Towards the end, Hans Huberman looked at Liesel Miminger and made certain she was focused. He gave her a list of consequences if you tell anyone about the man, her teacher, Reevdy. It didn't matter whom. What mattered was that all were punishable. For starters, he said, I will take each and every one of our books and I will burn them. It was callous. I will throw them in the stove for the or the fireplace. He was certainly acting like a tyrant, but it was necessary. Understand. The shock made a hole in her, very neat, very precise. Tears, well, yes, Papa. Next, he had to remain hard and he needed to strain for it. They will take you away from me. Do you want that? She was crying now in earnest. Neen. Good. His grip on her hand tightened. They will drag that man up there away, and maybe Mama and me too, and we will never ever come back. And that did it. A girl began to sob on uncontrollably that Papa was dying to pull her into him and hug her tight. He didn't instead. He squatted down and watched her directly in the eyes. He unleashed his quietest words so far. Bantus do much. Do you understand me? The girl nodded. She cried and now, defeated, shattered. Her papa held her in the painted air and the kerosene light. I understand, Papa, I do. Her voice was muffled against his body, and they stayed like that for a few minutes. Liesel was squashed, breath, and Papa rubbing her back. upstairs. When they returned, they found Mama sitting in the kitchen, alone and pensive. When she saw them, she stood and beckoned Liesel to come over. Noticing the dried up tears that streaked her, she brought the girl into her and heaped a typically rugged embrace around her body. Alice got summoned. She didn't need an answer. Everything was good, but it was awful too. यहाँ पे होता है हमारा चैप्टर नंबर 29 ख़त्म. चैप्टर 30 काफ़ी छोटा सा है, द स्लीपर. मिलेंगे हम नेक्स्ट चैप्टर द स्लीपर फ्रॉम द बुक थीफ. थैंक यू वेरी मच फ्रेंड्स, and bye. Like, share and subscribe. Bye. Thank you very much.